Hello, I'm Jack Lindsay with Exclusively Games, and this interview is brought to you by Galaxy Burger. Try their new human patties today. We're here with Chimera One Games to discuss their upcoming title, BulletRage. Would you guys care to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Casey Scher. I'm creative director on BulletRage. Basically do a majority of artwork, implementation, making sure everything stays true to the world and design.
And my name is Herbert, nickname Iceby, and I'm the director and also the evil dungeon master of the game BulletRage. I'm responsible for just making sure the game plays really well and just giving a really awesome experience.
Well, thank you for being here. I know you guys are really busy. So first, for those who have no idea, what is BulletRage?
Okay, I should have prepared this statement. BulletRage is a top-down twin-stick shooter. It's just pure infused adrenaline from start to finish of a level. It's cross genre. It's a few different games types combined together. But mostly it's an experience. You just really got to play it to experience it. Basically, when you play the game, you get the old classic feels of arcade action. You get a mix of bullet hells. You get the the sci-fi monster bashing of Doom. You get the faster intensity of Quake. You get co-op action, kind of like back in those days with Contra and Smash TV. And then you have all these crazy power-ups, kind of like Bomberman. So it's a whole bunch of different things, but in a really adrenaline-infused package.
You did fine without a prepared statement. Where can people go to keep up with any kind of updates, to follow you guys? Where can they find you?
They can find us either on Twitter. They can find us on our Discord. We can just link it later.
Yeah, we'll have the links in the video description.
Yep, they can find us in those two places mostly, but Discord for sure is our most active place, because we've built up a community up, and you know what, I don't want to get ahead of the questions, but like since day one, the whole game has been centered around the community. Like we've had fans from all different types of games come to us and just helped to build the game as it is now. So it's really a community-driven project.
Okay, how about release date and platforms it will be released on?
So currently it runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac. And we have plans to go on Xbox, PS, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch especially. Very soon after, or depending on how our Kickstarter goes. If it goes really, really well, like Star Citizen well, and then we'll launch it all at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Will the PC version be compatible with console controllers?
Oh yeah. We actually have a lot of PS4 players. We've actually had somebody actually get a computer just so they can play BulletRage when they were usually PS4 players. But yeah, definitely we have a pile of different controllers on our table. We have Steam controller, PS4 controllers, Xbox controllers, Logitechs, crappy like no-name ones, everything.
Good. And I see you have cross-platform scoreboards. How does that work? Is it all platforms share the same scoreboard, or it indicates who was on which one? How does that work?
So we haven't finalized the technology for all the cross-platform elements yet, because I know it gets kind of iffy, especially with PlayStation, right? But the goal is to have at least a cross-platform leaderboards. Basically, we'll have a central server, and everybody can compete on with each other. But ideally, when we do our online multiplayer, that we can have as many platforms as possible. live competing with each other or co-op together.
Okay, and is there a separate scoreboard for co-op playthroughs for multiplayer?
Yes, currently we are using the Steam platform at the moment because it was just very easy to integrate. But then we're building a full standalone cross-platform server that's outside of Steam, where it can then have a lot more leaderboards. For example, co-op leaderboards, single-player leaderboards, challenge leaderboards, like dailies, weeklies leaderboards, 2 players, 3 players, 4 players, etc.
PvP?
Oh yeah, I love PvP. PvP is going to be a huge aspect.
Well, I meant leaderboards for PvP, but then I was going to ask about PvP itself.
Okay. So really excited to talk about PvP. So the leaderboards, yeah, I mean everything you can think of, the leaderboard will have, because we're probably going to put in and make it filterable as well. So you can kind of see like, oh, I only want to see a leaderboard with shotgun or something, and then can you maybe do like a custom filter where it only ranks the people who used shotgun.
Yeah. Well, definitely tell me about PvP because it's inevitable when people go through this on co-op at the higher difficulties, they're going to want to kill each other. So I think that mode is going to be really popular. What kind of modes have you got?
Okay, so we have, I mean, this game is still in mid-development, of course. We haven't even done our Kickstarter yet. But I think at this stage we have our core gameplay really polished because it's, I think, 3 years now has been of polishing nonstop with communities. So getting back to PvP, it's I would say so you can have the basic free-for-all. You can jump in and just kill stuff, kill each other. And there's also going to be team death matches. And there's a big request for guild or clan ladders. And because I was really big into playing Quake, so I'm really into all that.
Okay, well, so that's one form of competition. Is the direct head-to-head, and of course, there's the competition as far as climbing the scoreboard itself. But within that context of climbing the scoreboard, tell me how that works as far as how score is generated in game if you want to climb that ladder, the different methods, multipliers, etc.
Okay, so I'm going to take a step back and talk about more so the single player aspect first.
Sure.
And because that directly answers your question. So to get scores in the game, firstly, it's not mandatory. Getting a top score in the game is completely optional. Our primary focus is for sure the experience itself, the combat experience, the adrenaline experience. It's about playing the way you want to, and score. While we have a lot of things implementing the score system, it's absolutely optional because we want people to play how they want. And I think we've built a system where you can kind of play the way you want and still get a lot of score instead of having to memorize the exact steps to achieve top score. We put in a few different ways for you to achieve good score. Now there is, for example, there are these bonus towers, and if you get to them quicker, then you get a higher bonus score, and there's a countdown on it. So that's for people who are really good at running quickly, speed running, for example. And then we have other people who are really good at dodging, not getting hit. And there's huge bonuses for skill-based things like that, where if you don't get hit through the whole level or get hit less times, then you get a much bigger bonus. Or if you don't get killed, same thing.
Okay, so that's actually more interesting than I was kind of trying to, as I was going through it, I was kind of trying to build. First of all, I have to say, it never even occurred to me that some people would be indifferent towards score, but that's a good point. I was kind of trying to build in my head, like, how do you perform? Because for me, it was a metric of performance. And I'm like, so how do we maximize performance? And I noticed those towers, and I'm like, okay, they're counting down. But at what point do they start counting down? Because obviously the ones at the very end of the level, or are they? They're not counting down as soon as the level starts, right? Is it once you cross a certain threshold, it starts the countdown on the next tube?
Right. There's an area that actually is defined. We have labeled with kind of red caution. As soon as you enter that area, it begins the countdown on the timer.
Okay.
So for people to the section of that area where the tower is located quickly and grab up those points. And then they can choose to either progress to the next area or stay and shoot. You get multiplier bonuses as well for kills. So the more enemies you're killing in a chain, the higher the multiplier bonus, and you can keep that skill chain going to get even more bonuses just off stuff alone, if you prefer.
Okay, and then there's also something about consecutive damage, like a killing spree, like score multiplier is separate from killing spree, right?
Yes. So we have two things, and while we have these elements, like for example, kill streak and score multiplier, we were hoping it did not be as complicated as to have to show constantly the stats on screen, because we want to avoid having too many stats blocking the UI. So the kill streak is kind of just hidden, semi-hidden, and it basically is of the current time. When you kill monsters within 2 seconds, you keep a chain going, and we've had players chain up to 500, 600 kills. So, and I think that speaks also to the what I was talking about before about the non-stop adrenaline action. Because basically, people from start to finish, by the time they get to the end of the boss, they kill the boss, they have to take a break. Like, wow,
go lie down.
Exactly. And then the God's kill streak adds a lot as you go higher. For example, 100 kill streak, it may add maybe 2 multiplier, and we had 200 kill streak, it may add 3 multiplier, and it ramps up exponentially.
Okay.
And then that the multiplier will affect every single action you do, because if you kill the boss when you have like a 60 multiplier, that's a lot.
Yeah. So you would say then that it's not a linear scale on which you maximize score, which again is not the only purpose. You can choose to favor speedrun and unlock shortcuts to go for the green tubes, but in doing so, you forego grabbing everything on the way, and maybe some enemies they're tucked away. Or you can explore everything and fight everything, but if you do that, then you aren't getting the green tubes as high. It's kind of a like choose your style kind of thing. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, definitely. If you watch a few streams, you see players have a few different styles that they do. It's really interesting. So some players they kind of hand back and they kind of shoot everything. They enjoy the scenery, and then they're very cautious, and that's fine, right? Because it is a game that ramps up in difficulty. And then there's also players who just charge ahead, as I would like to call them. They kind of charge ahead like a barbarian berserker, and just go YOLO. And I mean, that's definitely my favorite type of
Are you sure it's fine to be cautious and defensive? Because it quickly seemed to me that was not working out. Because I don't know if it's on backpedaling, things would appear behind you, and if you were cautious and defensive and did step by step, eventually you killed everything, and then you lost all your multipliers. So for me, forward momentum or circular momentum, just dragging huge herds of things, and kind of was more the name of the game. But I guess if you don't care about score,
You can keep your multiplier up simply by shooting and destructing the environment around you. So we've strategically placed like the cameras that are in there, the boxes and things. So if you do way back in the area and you're like, oh, crud, I need to progress the next area to get the next wave of enemies, you can shoot stuff along the way to keep that multiplier up.
That's good advice. Let's talk about weapons. There are currently 2 in the demo. There's the machine gun and the missile launcher. How many are there going to be during launch?
20 base weapons.
28?
20 base
20
weapons.
base weapons. Okay.
So this is how the weapon system is going to work.
Okay.
So we're currently developing a weapon socket system. And so what we do is we're going to have 20 base weapon types.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have a whole bunch of different bullet types. And we're going to have a whole bunch of different power cores. And they all combine together. And you can make a virtually limitless kind of combinations. We currently estimate, even before we really went too high with all the sub item types that we have, we were already at something like 500,000 different combinations.
What else? Well, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's going to be pretty interesting seeing how people craft their own weapon type. It's a really arcade type of sandboxing.
Mm-hmm. What would be some examples of ammo types and core types? Like, how does that work?
Here's a really fun example. Okay, so one of the base weapon type is going to be a Ghostbuster Beam.
Cool.
Right? Because I love Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so imagine you start off with a Ghostbuster type beam. So it's kind of like a plasma, like a wave, beam weapon that kind of waves around. Just imagine that. And then you apply a split modifier. So then now you have 3 beams shooting out, which is already pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add piercing to it. Okay, so you add multiple piercing. So instead of the beam stopping at the first thing it hits, you'll pierce through multiple things. And combine that with a twirl modifier. So you can modify the trajectory and shape of the bullets. So imagine basically a giant screen full of twirling Ghostbuster beams that pierces through multiple things.
And for piercing and twirl, which of those are ammo type and which of those are core?
The beam itself is the bullets, and then all the modules are the power cores. And you get the power cores from loot drops, fighting bosses and mini bosses.
And how many slots per weapon?
There is going to be 3 slots.
Okay.
So you can combine it in really. We don't want to get too much into it, reveal too much about this because it's still in the works. But we have the way we combine these. Our main goal is to not make them incremental. Our goal is to make them substantially feel different when you play it.
Speaking of that, I noticed that the machine gun and the missile launcher both had completely different secondary attacks. The machine gun gets that 360 sword twirl, and the missile launcher gets that beam. Are all 20 weapons going to have a unique secondary attack specific to each one?
Yes, because each of the secondary actually compensates for the weakness of the primary.
Do they are they modifiable? The secondary attacks? Do gems or core anything customizable as far as that?
That's always possible, but because it was actually very hard to balance, the secondary is currently perfectly balanced to compensate for primary, and if we modify it, because it's more of a utility for secondary right now. For example, the secondary always has a bullet destruction function. So if we mess with it too much, we may throw off the balance.
So how does weapon up work? Because I was using the missile launcher. I noticed sometimes I would hear weapon up, and I would start to fire more missiles at once. It started out with a low number, and by the end it was kind of a spread of missiles. But then I kept hearing weapon up, and I wasn't noticing any changes. So what's going on there? How does it work?
Okay. So Weapon Up was from one of our older systems. And what it does is, so you have 3 tiers of weapon upgrades, tier 1, 2, and 3. And when you get a weapon up, you go from 1 to 2, or 2 to 3, and it caps at 3. When you die, you drop down to 1. Now, with that said, as we implement the weapon socket system, this might be something that we may shelf, because it's already quite complex, and we want to have a simplified experience for players.
Yeah, so even though it kept saying weapon up, it wasn't going past a certain level.
There's it's not upgrading beyond that.
Okay.
But it does have a nice little explosion damage when you touch one.
Oh yeah, because see, when you, like you said, when you die, you lose all your weapon ups. So any death was a complete restart for me, because it's like I just lost 37 weapon ups because I'd heard it that many times. I'm like, I'll never get back to that many. But okay, it actually caps at 3. That's reassuring.
Well, that's impressive. Not dying for that long. That's good for you.
I thought I was impressive when I started this game, because when I started it, I thought I had clicked on the second to highest difficulty. What's that one called?
Ultra Insanity.
Ultra Insanity. I'm like, Ultra Insanity, let's do this. And I click on it, and I just breeze through the game, and I get like 6th place on your scoreboard. And I'm like, man, this game is for babies. And then, as I'm going back in there, I realize I was on normal. For those listening, normal is the easiest difficulty. So I'm like, okay, sure, we'll just bump it back up. And there's a substantial difference, we'll say. When I was on my normal playthrough, I was moving along, destroying everything and thinking, man, they're just giving away health packs like candy, And then on the Ultra Insanity playthrough, I'm like, please, just one more health pack.
They become a lot more valuable. But, the one thing I'll say that the game does very, very well is I think it's one of those bridge games. It's something that if you're not accustomed to a bullet hell and you're not accustomed to a fast-paced game, it doesn't punish you. I mean, you can play and generally feel good about your playthrough. No matter if you're a novice and beginner all the way up to an expert at the game, it feels rewarding to play. At least, when we test it out and our community tests it out, it generally feels satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are multiple difficulty modes. You guys want to break that down for me? The different kinds, the differences between them?
Okay, I'll take this one. So the normal mode is it's the mode that anybody can play. It's a mode where and this is interesting because we actually had people who don't play twin stick shooters and come to us and say, hey, I actually really enjoyed your normal mode. Mm-hmm. I don't usually play this kind of game, but actually, wow, I did so well in it, and it just felt great, and I just had a blast. So we've had a lot of reactions like that, and that is exactly what the normal mode was built for. Okay, going one mode up, it's called hard mode, and I would say it's about 30% more difficult. Bullets are faster, enemies are faster. Enemy health actually does not go up that much for the difficulties. They're all pretty much the same because we hate bullet sponges. Mm-hmm. That's one thing we really want to avoid through the whole game. We want things to feel like very popcorny, very snappy, and just feels good.
That's a good adjective, popcorny.
Yeah. It's definitely a core of our game design. So I mean, as you go up hard mode, insanity mode, ultra insanity mode, all those the first 4 modes, they just you have one less hit points per mode. Things gets faster. Things gets shoot faster. The bullet patterns, the attacks that enemies does also changes. They get more complex. And then so you have less space to dodge, and you get more interesting bullet patterns and all that that's coming for you. For example, the mid boss, the arena layout changes based on your difficulty level as well. And then, well, the 5th and highest mode is a totally different beast. So that is the mode. Is
that one, yeah.
It's basically a love letter to all the hardcore pro gamers out there.
Yeah. Or kind of a love-hate letter. Because it's a love-hate experience. Personally, I love the suffering, so...
Yes, that's why...
And I would say, you know, we've had one person so far that's beaten it on the demo at the highest difficulty. Watching them play, it's like they're wizards at manipulation around the arena and not getting hit. But,
what have you guys beaten?
Man, you know, my mode is middle. I'm middle of the road. I'm insanity mode. Yeah. I think for me is the best balance of challenge versus reward, and keeping things fast paced and you know, feels good. And the main challenge for me is, of course, trying to keep my multiplier up. So it's always pushing me not to hang back, to go forward and push forward, but at the same time, don't get hit too much. That's where I find my comfort zone. However, I mean, each of those modes do train you to become better at what you're doing. After watching numerous streamers, I've seen people that have started off on the normal mode, generally got the feel for it. And within a week's time, they're up in the higher difficulties and they've mastered, you know, the controls of the game. So it's very simplistic to get. It's simple to get into, but also very complex to play, I'd say.
I would say I can beat Ultra Insanity, simply because I know where all the secrets are.
That's not fair.
No, I guess not. But I cannot beat Beyond Mode.
I haven't beaten Ultra Insanity yet. I keep getting to that middle boss, and certainly the biggest weakness for me is for the god dang ones that come from behind. There was nothing behind me, and then I move forward, and then they come from behind. Because it's harder for me on PC to do a complete swivel around, as opposed to a control stick to just point backwards and fire real quickly. Because also it's not instant. Even if you do instantly do it, there's a turn time. And is that going to be the same for all weapons? Certain weapons will be able to turn around instantly, or it's all kind of got the same tracking?
We didn't want to have the instant turn because it felt a little bit unnatural to the controls. It felt too 2D. It just didn't, it just removed the 3D aspects of it. So we're trying to balance that. I mean, we've tweaked it like 1,000 times, trying to get the perfect balance for that variable of how quickly you can turn.
So there's a Twitch extension you guys are working on where viewers can basically screw with their favorite streamers. So you would tell me how that works?
Sure. Yeah, we actually already implemented our chat-based Twitch connection before. And basically what we had back then was you can summon enemies, summon monsters by the Twitch viewers by typing in numbers. And you can also vote on the next item to be applied to all the players. So for example, you can vote for like a time bomb, and that can happen. That can automatically get applied to all the players on the screen. Or you can vote for something good. Of course, that never happens.
No.
Right? Those votes never win.
You guys are going to be making some Twitch streamers question their life choices with that.
I thought you liked me.
Yeah. I also envision scenarios where Twitch streamers can go in and play multiplayer with some of their fellow chat users, and then the rest of the chat is still participating in the match by maybe it comes up and they can select an uber mob or a heavy, tanky mob to come into the arena and try to kill the players. Maybe drop like an awesome rare power up for the time being, or maybe even vote to switch the entire trajectory of the level. So one path closes off and they choose a separate path to pursue, which leads to an entirely new boss fight or what have you. Those are all ideas that we've been tossing around just to make Twitch integration that much more satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Just give them a button to vote on that just instantly kills the streamer. So power-ups are a huge part of the game. Obviously, I mean they're the craziest part of the game for sure. While I was grabbing them, a lot of times I couldn't tell where they were coming from. So there are different sources. Sometimes it seemed like they dropped from enemies. Sometimes I got them from these circular floor pads, and sometimes there was just this magical roulette wheel that gave them to me. Is that all of them, or how does that all work, basically?
So we have a bunch of different ways. You're right. So the pads, the loot pads, the bonus spin wheel, loot drops from bosses or from small mobs. Usually these kind of places, and they also differ slightly. For example, at the highest difficulties, you don't get time slow. You don't get things like time bomb.
Sometimes when I got that roulette wheel, it would say, "Who wants to see it land on the bad one?" Is it just messing with me?
There's a debuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are also debuffs from those red skulls, right?
Yes. So the red skulls are a gamble. When you pick them up, you will have a random bad effects, but you also gain about half a bar of rage energy, which is used for dashes and ultra attacks. So I mean, the whole game, like with what we talked about before about the bonus towers, and you have to get to it quickly, right? To get a high score, high bonus from it. The whole game is based around how aggressive you want to get, risk and reward. The more you risk in this game, the more you reward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed too that if you're firing on oncoming hordes and they're dropping power-ups and they're just surrounded by monsters and you're like, well, I'm never getting that, you can actually dash. You're invincible when you dash. So you can dash straight through the entire swarm, grab the power-up, and when you grab power-ups, it blows everything up around you. So that was really cool. That, it changes the kind of momentum of the game where you're just kind of skirting, or at least I was, skirting edges and, trying to keep a wall at my back so they couldn't come from behind, and then dashing in to grab power-ups and dashing back out again. That was really neat.
Yeah, we want to create that feeling of going up against insurmountable odds and coming out, those clutch victories and like, oh man, I never thought I'd get past that. But there's viable strategies. We've got people that do the dashing through all those mobs to try and limit them down. We got other people that hit their ultra and just blast away at them. We want to make sure that whatever your strategy is, it feels really good to do it, and just to come out on top and say, wow, I totally just trashed that group. So
yeah, I noticed that it's very in flux, your power state. At any given time, you can be running for your life, screaming, just they're all bearing down on you, and then you grab the right power-ups, and for a second you can just plant your feet and just hold them back for just and you're just like you just feel like you're in an action movie or something with monsters, and then the power-up runs out the power-up runs out and you're dead.
So I would say that's kind of like Pac-Man, isn't it? It's kind of like Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's true in a way. Which of you thought of health packs that drop when you desperately need them and you're surrounded by enemies, and there's that glorious health pack, but for some reason it bounces you away? And how do you sleep at night?
That would be me, because I'm the evil dungeon master. That was purely for my stream viewing enjoyments.
Why does that happen?
That happens because it's actually called fake HP. It spawns a negative item that looks exactly like a maximum health.
Okay.
But you can never get it. and it bounces it back into enemies.
It's good to know that. It's good to know you can never get it now. After trying to shoot the barrier off of it, after trying to dash to it. And it comes in all sizes too, right? Like there are fake HPs of all different varieties.
We're not that mean. It's just one of.
Okay. How about those secret chickens? What's going on there?
So the secret chickens. There was a funny story, actually, surrounding that as well. So we wanted to put in some Easter eggs. So because we wanted Easter eggs for the people who loves Easter eggs, but they don't actually give you a ton of points as bonus. They're purely there for completion satisfaction and for Easter egg hunting. Okay, and then when you get it, you get some rage and you get a stat, but maybe we may use it for achievement purposes, but aside from that, it's just finding it. And the sound that you hear when you get the secret chicken, there's a story behind that with Casey. Maybe you can tell.
My wife is from Vietnam, so we go over there every year. And while I was talking with Herbert over the phone, he said, we need a sound that's unique for collecting our chickens. And his father just happened to have a whole bunch of roosters going around. And so the sound that you hear is actually a recording off of my phone that I captured one of the roosters just going to cawing. And I put that in there just for fun. And to mention those secret chickens, they do become kind of valuable in the upper echelon difficulties because they'll give you a 1-up. So
yeah, I noticed that. I also noticed somebody mistakenly seems to have put a mine by every single secret.
Yeah, totally by accident.
Okay. So I was looking in the audience stands, and I couldn't figure out. Some of them looked human. Some of them kind of looked like creatures. The whole thing is a game show, right? For human race has been enslaved by aliens. They're being made to fight to the death in this game show, and they're. Do humans also watch the game show, or who's up there?
I would say, there are aliens that look like humans.
Okay.
So, Q X-Files tune.
Okay. And in case anyone was wondering, the sponsor of this interview, Galaxy Burger, is from the game, and it says in the game sometimes it'll say, "Try our new human patties." If anyone's ever wondering, I wonder what a human patty would taste like. Back in the late 1800s, when people discovered the Pacific Islands, they met with cannibals, and the term that the cannibals had for human meat was called long pig. Apparently, it tastes like pork.
What?
Just in case anyone...
Gross.
Just in case anyone was wondering. Do you guys have anything you want to cover before we go to audience questions? Any secret chickens for me? Anything that no one knows yet?
That's a good question. I would say no. We covered so many things. I can't think of anything in particular.
Well, let's go on to the questions here, and I've kind of cleaned them up grammar-wise, but you're going to probably still have to help me with a couple of them.
Sure.
We've got Nuclear Pyromaniac asks, what has been the most challenging part of development for your team?
I would say I'll take that question first. I would say the most challenging part is creating a game with an extremely small team. That is definitely the hardest. And we basically had to, figure out how to do things, but at a fraction of the team size that larger studios would have. So we had to come up with really interesting and new techniques for developing artwork.
Like the bullwhip.
Yes, that works for the first 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and then the slaves kind of die off.
Mm-hmm. We've got one from Ultraviolet that says, "Were there any titles that you aspired to while making this game, and were those titles Yoshi's Island or Super Mario World?"
I would say definitely inspired by games like Contra, Smash TV, Doom, Quake, Duke 3D for its humor, and like Bomberman.
Yeah, and I'm a huge MMO buff. I mean, I played a lot of Final Fantasy 11, of course, World of Warcraft, and so
Border Alliance.
Borderlands. I did play Borderlands 2.
No, I said Horde or Alliance.
Oh, Horde or Alliance. Horde. Yeah. When I first joined, back when it first launched, I had a undead warlock, of course. And then I named him Blackmore, and then all of a sudden they put in a General Blackmore in one of the expansions, and I geeked out. So,
Ultraviolet has another question. It says, "Someone once said art is never finished, only abandoned." That was Da Vinci. Is your team finding it hard to move on to other sections of the game rather than continuing to improve in existing parts?
Well,
I'll take that one. Okay. So, yeah, basically what happened was the game has been tested since long ago. And some of the testers have experienced the game like much earlier on. And maybe I can even get you the demo like since like 300 builds ago. I can send that to you later. And basically, people were saying back then, even 1 or 2 years ago, saying, "Hey, this game is pretty cool. It's good enough. Why don't you just launch it?" Because at that point, we already made 200 levels for BulletRage, which took a long time. And so we at that point we're thinking, okay, do we launch it? Do we just launch this and just have a really small niche of potential players and customers? But then people were saying, "Hey, you know what? This game actually is really fun, has potential, but the graphics sucks." and then that led us to adding co-op and improving the graphics, and we just somehow couldn't stop improving it up to today. And just to give a finished answer to that, I think the most important thing that we refuse to leave half done would be the core battle experience. That is something we've polished since day one for 3 years. And I believe we now have something that is truly enjoyable.
Yeah, to speak from the art point of things, it's true. I mean, art is never really a finished product. You do have to abandon it at some point. From my standpoint, we're our own self-critical, persons for art. So we look at things through a very critical eye. And my goal is always to make things look the best it can look, right? Sometimes that leads into going a little overboard, and then performance suffers. Then you got to dial it back, and you're like, you want to get eye candy in there. But yeah, we definitely hit, at a certain threshold where the art looks good, people like it, and it performs well, and then we keep it. So
I saw those boulders you were working on. They look beautiful.
I can actually touch upon the performance aspects a little bit. That's something interesting. So since day one, we were actually going to launch it as a mobile phone title. It was never expected to be a console or a desktop title. So we've optimized it for mobile since day one, and we haven't really. So every new piece of art that we add, we want to make sure it runs very well since mobile days. Eventually, we moved away from mobile because as we increased the intensity of the game, add more elements to the game, my fingers just kept slipping off the phone. I couldn't control it anymore, and so we jumped to desktop. But we haven't We haven't left the core mode optimization part of our development cycle, where we determined to give maximum performance. For example, I only have a GTX 660 video card, so it's a pretty old card.
Yeah, it seemed like the graphics weren't too demanding.
Yeah.
We've got one from Julian that says, do you intend to ever play and win Ultra Insanity mode as a team?
I don't know whether we'll play co-op as a team, but once we have online multiplayer, I fully intend to crush every single person I see.
Yeah, your team, your development team. You mean your team
included? No, everybody.
Okay.
I challenge you all.
You're like, I don't know if we're gonna do it as a team because somebody might be holding us back. We've got one from Tuxbot, the tux-wearing robot, who says, what kind of drugs do you take to make BulletRage?
I take some multivitamins.
Man, you grab the right power-ups, you don't need any drugs.
That's right.
Blue Today says, any plans for cool achievements in your game?
Oh yeah, we understand that achievements is a huge thing these days, right? And I personally love, seeing people find secret achievements, right? So we're definitely going to hide a lot of that. I mean, just the way you see we hide the secret chickens, we love hiding stuff. We're going to have a lot of cool hidden achievements.
Anonymous asks, when will people who want to support the game be able to opt in as a backer on Kickstarter? What kind of awesome rewards are planned for backers? And where can we go to be notified when the campaign launches?
So, I think, sorry, I inserted that question as a joke.
I almost suspected that because it was one of the only questions that was spelled right.
Right. I totally forgot to take that out. All right.
That's fine. I mean, answer the question. Why not?
All right. If Anonymous insists, I guess we'll answer it. Okay. So we will. So our Kickstarter is coming up within a few weeks. We've been trying to promote it as much as possible because as of this interview, not many people know about the game yet. It's been in stealth mode.
That's about to change.
Hopefully. We're looking forward to it. And awesome rewards. Yeah, and for rewards, I've backed a lot of different Kickstarters. And we're definitely going to have really, really kick-ass Kickstarters rewards. We want something that is just creative. Like, we want to be creative. We want to have people have fun with prizes. It'll be good. It'll be good. We'll make sure of it. And if you want to get notified for when the Kickstarter happens, just go on to BulletRage.com. You can sign up there to get notified through email. And also don't forget the wish list on Steam.
Okay. The next three questions are kind of convoluted, but so basically they're all asking about the alien race itself. Their level of technological advancement. We see everything in the demo is a machine. They want to know if they're going to be facing flesh and blood aliens, what those might look like, if they're going to be alien environments for levels, etc. That's kind of what all the next three questions are being asked.
So I can talk a little bit about the story background, and then Casey can cover a little bit about the art side of things. So the premise of the game is. The basic description is, okay, aliens come and take over the planet and blah blah blah. You have to kill them. Very standard. But we actually have a really in-depth story behind it, which is but nobody really reads. So we just put a one-liner in there in the demo.
I think you might be surprised how many people wonder about these things. I think it's something that developers kind of often feel like, no one cares for depending on the type of game. But I hear a lot of fans wanting more narrative engagement from that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what you have planned for levels. I was thinking one might be neat if you ever in the factory where they process the humans into hamburger meat. So you got like conveyor belts with body parts going on them and meat hooks and grinders to avoid all that kind of stuff, man.
We were talking exactly about that level just the other day. The basically the factory for Galaxy Burger.
Yeah. Or you could even back up into the, like some stores have their factory in the back, and then the front of it is the actual store with the customers, and you break out of that, and they're like, the livestock is loose. I don't know, but
the worlds we pretty much are going to make it so there's some universe to explore. The first world is pretty much set on a terraformed Earth. These aliens have pretty much, without going too much into the story just yet, these aliens are pretty much a domineering race. They love violence. They love turning things, and they've made this huge game show and broadcast it throughout the galaxy. So what they do is they enslave different planets and different races and use the strongest of that race in their game show just to see who survives. Most of them do not. Mm-hmm. So after the human race has been wiped out, only the strongest have been pitted into this game show. Those who survive, just like a gladiatorial type of thing, will go on to other planets. And so we've got a few other planets, their different biomes set up. They're going to have their own unique ecology, their own unique biology. They may even use some sort of different residents of that planet as death traps. So, one thing we were discussing a little bit is the desert sort of environment I'm working on now. It'll have its own little creatures that are lurking beneath the sands, waiting to nip at your. Would be a sand lion type of thing that gets sucked into huge over the top bosses we got planned. They're just going to be ridiculous and bigger than life.
Sandworm?
Feel real. Got something in the works, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we've planned. Some is concept out already. It's just mostly getting through the art side of things and getting things down and cemented. But yeah, so far we talked about a desert type planet. A lava induced planet. We've got
that sounds like it wouldn't be enraging at all. Adding
literally. So
actually, so one thing I would like to comment on about the levels. So the levels currently they're handcrafted. Because each room is designed with a battle scenario in mind on how we envision the battles to take place within each of the rooms, just to have it be a very fun experience. All right, because I back in the day I made a lot of different Duke Nukem and Doom maps. So I loved making maps and cool battle scenarios, whether it's co-op or deathmatch maps. I love both of them. So you're going to see a lot of inspirations from that type of design style. And we also are planning to have a random dungeon generator because we want the game to have really good replay value. Mm-hmm. So we will have a random generator. We'll have daily challenges. We'll have weekly challenges where you just throws in different meta and you just mix things up. But definitely we want a really high replay value combined with the maps, random maps, and also with the weapon socket system that you can play a lot with.
All right, well, that wraps up the audience questions, and I think that about does it. From my end, you guys, any questions you have? Anything?
Yeah, so exclusively games. You guys have now started, launched the website not too long ago, right? Mm-hmm. Got some awesome unbiased gaming news, which is fantastic to look at and read. You guys growing as a team, I would imagine. So, you know, I mean, just for us too, how can we get the word out so that people can view the website, view the content, know where you guys are located as an alternative news source?
Well, when I get this video ready, I'll post it to my Twitter. And, you know, you can repost that and link to us and go, hey, here's this interview. It's with Exclusively Games. Check them out. You could also link that in your Discord, and that would, you know, that would let people know. Yeah, we're pretty early, but things are starting to move along here. And we're also a tiny, tiny team, so I know how it is. But it's been, we were also, we were built from Kickstarter entirely. Or it wasn't Kickstarter, it was a crowdfunding platform that I cannot for the life of me remember the name of.
Yeah, I think I remember the one you're talking about.
Yeah. Completely gone. Oh, well. But yeah, so I think that about covers it. So this has been Chimera 1 Games talking about BulletRage, and I'm Jack Lindsay with Exclusively Games. Until next time.